What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today, we're going to be talking about how to beat this very common Guild Wars defense that has been around for a very long time. So, how we're going to do that is first, we'll discuss what the weak points are of the defense. You can start theory crafting. Then I'll actually show you some of the actual teams and the team compositions and talk about some different options that you can use if you don't have the exact same units. And hopefully by the end, after talking about the defense and seeing the teams, you never lose to this defense again. Because to be completely honest with y'all, this defense is absolute freelo. I love seeing this defense. Every time I see this defense, I know I'm getting a free win that I can no brain required. I can just slap a team on and get a win. Right? So hopefully after this video, you feel a lot better if you're someone that loses to this defense and you potentially have ways to deal with it. So with that, if you like the video and you want to see more like this where I break down meta defenses and talk about ways to beat them, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with how does this defense work, right? Why was it so popular at the time? So what this defense is trying to do is have the protection from Fallen Cecilia with the barriers, with a Landy on Guiding Light typically, that makes it so you can't hit her turn 1 unless you have an AoE skill, and even then she's not going to take that much damage as the barrier. And you have the T-Surin, so you're not able to easily cleave this defense, because if you cleave but you're unable to kill the T-Surin, then your traditional cleave will lose. Well, however, when you start breaking down how this defense works, it essentially is barrier protection and buffs, AoE speed buff for the T-Surin, and then AoE attacks to try to kill your team really quickly, right? But the biggest crux of this defense is going to come from the fact that the Landy is extremely squishy. And that is the main way that you actually get rid of this defense, or that you can one-shot the T-Surin. Because if it's only one of these units, they usually are not enough to carry the damage, right? Or if you can manipulate the AI to target a tank, then you're not going to be taking that much damage. Or if you just survive the burst and go forward with your team, that's another way. So the main ways that you do this is first, how to reach these squishy units is going to be units like Basar. Basar is a really good unit to try to reach Landy, right? And it's very consistent, which is why Basar is so good. You soul burn it, you strip everyone, you push them back, you take turn 1, and you're able to easily cleave the defense, as we'll see later on, right? So Basar is the easiest method. If you have Basar, this defense is going to be the easiest thing for you to beat, right? Just use Basar against this defense and you'll win almost every single time, right? Because it's so consistent and it's so good and it gives you turn 1. The other way to win it is, as we mentioned, is going to be unit manipulation. Since Landy is an earth unit, if you don't stack up too many buffs and you have 2 fire units, Landy will always do her S1s on the unit that is not a fire unit, which you can usually do that by putting, for example, Ross, who's a free-to-play fire unit, and then put another fire unit. In this case, it could be someone like Carrot, right, who's another free-to-play unit. You could easily put a Carrot in there, Ross, and then your last unit is a support that helps heal, that is also going to tank the Landy. In this slot, it can be anyone like something like Doris, who's very consistent at healing. It could be someone like a Katie's, who provides, again, really big heals and deals with the T-Surin debuffs, right? And you'll actually see those some of those teams in action and some of those concepts in action, right? So that's another way to beat it. It's kind of like manage the AI. We've done a whole video talking about managing AI and all that good stuff. And then last, but definitely not least, another method is just Seasided. I know you may be thinking, wait, doesn't the Landy counter the Seaside? Not necessarily. This team is still very Seasideable, as are many teams, because again, they are squishy. If they can't kill you, then you just win with Seaside because you do too much damage and you'll easily kill this T-Surin. I will also be going over the variant for one of the fights that uses Robbie over T-Surin, and it's almost the same thing, except the Basar defense is not as consistent for that defense. But with that, now that you kind of have an idea of some of the weaknesses, let's actually look at some of these teams in action and break down the teams as well as the fights as we watch. Alright, so first let's start with the first team, this time Basar. So Basar is going to be the main unit that you're going to be using for cleaving. Here we have a traditional LQC Basar team, and I showed the worst case scenario for this one where we don't LQC S3 turn 1, although that would have made the fight go much faster. The second fight as well will just be the same team, but again, not showcasing ideal scenarios, showing what happens even if you have Moonlight Dreamblade. Basar is going to be one of the fastest, most consistent ways for you to win. Why is that? As you saw, you're able to strip the FCC and the Landy and push them back. And even if the T-Surin gets to go, the rest of your team should be bulky enough to tank one LQC S3. But if you're cleaving, the T-Surin should not even be able to cut. especially even if she has something like Guiding Light, she shouldn't be able to cut. That allows you to set up into the rest of your team quite easily. So some of the things you can actually do from Basar, besides using the LQC dunk, is actually going to be something like a Top Model Luluka or something even like a Carrot, because you're able to easily set up those Carrot burns since the opponent will not have any buffs. You can easily set up into your Carrot and just go from there. So Basar is going to be your easiest way to actually deal with this defense and one of the most reliable and fastest way to deal with it. The only thing you do have to watch out for, as you see in this video, is going to be Moonlight Dreamblade T-Suren, since if that does happen, you're potentially going to lose some units, and that's not somewhere you always want to be when you are doing Guild Wars, right? You don't want to lose units as few as possible, but for the most part, it's pretty consistent. This team works 100% of the time. I've never lost with this team. Even with Moonlight Dreamblade, as you saw there, or even when I mess up and don't LQC S3, right? So there's a lot of ways that Basar is really good. And again, it doesn't have to be LQC. It can be any traditional cleave that can kill the Landy and deal with the T-Suren's damage initial burst S3. The second team is going to be the old Tank and Spank. This team can actually be quite easily just tanked out and defeated. But that does not mean you Dark Corvus it. Dark Corvus is not always as reliable against this team, since because of the Landy and the T-Suren, that's a lot of AoE damage that you are going to be taking. So the way you do this is you want to stack fire units so that way your fire units can survive for longer. Here you see me use Ross and Ravi because they're not going to be getting hit. The one that's going to be taking all my damage is going to be Ruel. That doesn't necessarily have to be Ruel. That can easily be any other Soul Weaver. One of the very popular ones is going to be Achates, since a lot of Guild Wars mains have Achates build. But even Doris works quite well as well, since she also gives defense buff. The Ross is a free-to-play unit. And for Ravi, Ravi can easily be replaced by a Carrot. And if anything, it would probably make your team better, because now you'll be able to strip the Landy and set up burns, and also set up burns on that Tempest Suren. So if anything, this is probably going to be your most free-to-play team, because you can legitimately do Ross, Doris, and Carrots and easily deal with this team, because again, you have all your units on immunity, so the T-Suren debuffs don't matter because you already have been able to set up the rest of your team. The Tempest Suren will probably die to the burns from the Carrot, or in this case from the Ravi ramping up with the Ross, and then you have the support who is essentially tanking all the S1s from that landing, which that means that they're probably going to be the lowest health units, which also means that the T-Suren will also be S1ing that unit. That makes a situation where it's completely safe, it's completely predictable. You saw my team never drop below 50%, except the Ruel, who had at the S3 the whole time if things really did start looking not so good. So again, very easy team, very replaceable, can easily put Carrot in place of Ravi, and can easily put Doris in place of Ruel. This team is just something I had because I already had those units built, and because I really like Ruel and I don't get to take her out as often. But yeah, again, not super hard. This one will take a little bit longer to defeat the defense though. And last, but definitely not least, you got the Old Faithful, one of the most common offenses right now, which is going to be Seaside Bellona offense. Some people think because of the Landy you can't do it. While we do see this one is slightly different with the Ravi, but if anything, the Ravi makes it about the same as T-Suren, because T-Suren would just die faster. But the thing about it is Seaside with attack buff is often too much with the defense buff for the Landy to actually be able to pierce through. And with the Crawl for safety, you'll be able to win from there. Now this team does require Seaside, and it does require an attack buffer. That does not have to be a DN. It can be a Maid Chloe. It can be a General Purgus. The reason I like DN is because she provides more survivability, which makes it so the Landy cannot do as much damage to you because of the anti-crits and because of the barriers that she can provide, as well as the healing, which is why I like DN there. This one is a little bit probably the most restrictive, but it does show that there are so many ways to beat this defense. This defense is really easy to beat. I don't think you should be losing to it as long as you build some of these units, right? And understand how to counter it. With the Ravi combination, I usually don't take Basar into it. Again, because as you can see, I can just use this team. And the reason why I don't take Basar is because Ravi is a little bit tankier and will survive your LQC dunk if you're using the dunk. But if you're using Carrot, it should be the same thing. If you're using Basar Carrot, whether or not you miss doesn't make that much of a difference. So at the end of the day, it just really does depend on what your liking is, right? There's a bunch of stuff you can do. For this one's a little bit more set. The whole team is kind of already an Old Faithful. So that is all I got for you guys today. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. If you are curious about any of the unit builds, I didn't want this video to get particularly too long, so if you go to my channel, you'll be able to see all my updated units. I just posted the video about them for my full account overview, and it should have all the units there built and shown. So if you're curious about the builds, go there. But if you made it this far, make sure you leave a like and a sub. But that's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you next time. Peace.